The day my greedy son and his wife won $58 million in the lottery, they kicked me out with the words, "We don't need your pathetic pension cash anymore. Just go die somewhere else." But they went pale when I laughed and said, "Sweetie, did you even read whose name is on that lottery ticket?" If you're watching this, make sure you subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Now let me backtrack and tell you how we got to this delicious moment of justice.
My name is Margaret, though most people just call me Maggie. I'm 67 years old, retired after working for nearly 4 decades as a school secretary. I never had much money, but I had pride, self-respect, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I raised my son, Daniel, the best I could after his father passed away when he was only 7. Daniel had always been bright, maybe too bright for his own good. Growing up, he carried a sense of entitlement I couldn't quite shake out of him. If he wanted something, he found a way to get it, usually at someone else's expense. Still, he was my son, and like any mother, I excused too much, forgave too easily, and hoped one day he'd grow out of it. When Daniel married Vanessa, I thought maybe she would ground him, help him become more responsible. Oh, how wrong I was. Vanessa wasn't just entitled, she was greedy. She treated me less like a mother-in-law and more like a burden they had to tolerate. My pension? They saw it as something they deserved a piece of. My house? They kept suggesting I should downsize and sell it, just to help them with a bigger mortgage. But through all of that, I stayed patient. I had my savings, I had my little routines, tea in the mornings, crosswords in the afternoons, and the occasional lottery ticket, just for fun. I never bought more than 1 or 2 tickets a week, and it was never because I expected to win. It was just a silly hope, a little spark of what if. One Saturday morning, while picking up groceries, I bought a ticket. Just one. I tucked it into my handbag and forgot about it until the following Wednesday when the numbers were announced. I was in the living room, sipping chamomile tea, and I nearly spilled it when the numbers flashed on the screen. One by one, they matched. My heart started racing, my palms sweating. Could this be real? I grabbed the ticket, double-checked the numbers, then checked again online. There it was, a $53 million jackpot. And the winning ticket? Mine. But before I could even process what that meant, Daniel and Vanessa found out. You see, I'd bought the ticket while shopping with Vanessa the previous weekend. She remembered. She saw the draw results before I had even gotten around to confirming them. And by the time she and Daniel came pounding on my door, they had already convinced themselves the ticket was theirs. "Mon," Daniel said, barging into my living room like it was his own house, "you've got something that belongs to us." I blinked at him, still dazed, holding the ticket in my trembling hand. "Excuse me?" Vanessa's eyes glittered with a cruel sort of triumph. "The lottery ticket, the one we bought. Hand it over." I stared at her. "We?" "Vanessa, I bought this ticket myself. I even paid in cash. You were busy scrolling through your phone while I—" "Don't play dumb, Margaret," she snapped. "We all know you just waste money on these stupid things. Do the right thing for once and give it to us. Daniel's your son. Don't you want him to have a better life?" Daniel added with a smirk, "Yeah, Mum, you've had your time. You're old. You don't even need money anymore." My chest ached hearing those words. My own son, the boy I'd raised, looking at me as though I were disposable. I stayed quiet, though,
simply folding the ticket and slipping it into my book. "I'll deal with this in my own time," I said firmly. But of course, they didn't stop. Over the next 2 days, they pestered me relentlessly. Calls, texts, even showing up at my house late at night, demanding I hand over what's theirs. They made it sound as though I owed them everything. And then, the final blow came. The morning after the Lottery Commission officially confirmed the winning ticket was valid, Daniel and Vanessa came with suitcases. My son didn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "Mom, Vanessa and I talked. We don't need your pension cash anymore. We don't need you hanging around either. Just go die somewhere else." I felt like my heart had been crushed in a vice. They actually packed my things into trash bags and left them by the curb. My neighbors stared in shock as Vanessa sneered, "This is what happens when you try to keep what's not yours." But instead of crying or begging, I smiled. Yes, it hurt. But I knew something they didn't. They hadn't bothered to read the fine print. Because the lottery ticket, the winning one, wasn't just mine. It was also registered in a very particular way, under my name alone. I walked away that day with nothing but my handbag, leaving Daniel and Vanessa to celebrate their victory. They had no idea the storm that was coming. They thought they'd thrown me out of their lives for good. What they didn't realize was that I was the only one with the legal claim to that $53 million. And by the time they discovered the truth, they would be on their knees begging for my help. But I'll save that for the next part.
They thought they'd won. They kicked me out, mocked me, told me to just go die somewhere else. But what they didn't realize was that the $53 million ticket had only my name on it. The next morning, I woke up in the small guest room at my friend Eleanor's house. Eleanor had been my neighbor for 20 years before she downsized, and we still kept in touch. When she heard how Daniel and Vanessa treated me, she didn't hesitate to open her door. "You stay as long as you need, Maggie," she said, squeezing my hand. While sipping tea at her kitchen table, I picked up my phone. I dialed the number for the Lottery Commission, my fingers trembling. A kind woman on the line confirmed what I already suspected. "Ma'am, the winning ticket is registered under your name only. It's legally yours." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. My knees almost buckled. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't some old fool being shoved aside. The money was mine, and no one could take it from me. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't warn him. Instead, I quietly arranged an appointment with the lottery office to start the claim process. They asked for identification, paperwork, and a bank account for deposit. That same afternoon, I got my first taste of Daniel's desperation. He showed up at Eleanor's house, pounding on the door. When I opened it, his face was red with rage. "Why didn't you tell us you went to the lottery office?" he hissed. My heart skipped. So that's why he looked rattled. The commission must have informed him when they saw the ticket wasn't in his name. "Because it's my ticket, Daniel," I said evenly. "I bought it. My money, my signature. You had no part in it." Vanessa, standing behind him, spat out. "Don't be selfish, Margaret. You're too old to enjoy that kind of money. You'll be dead in a few years anyway." I simply smiled and shut the door in their faces. That was the first time I felt the tide shifting. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand. 2 days later, the story hit the local news.
Retired school secretary wins 53 million jackpot. They printed my name, my photo, my story. Overnight, I went from burden to headline. I received dozens of letters, calls from charities, even an interview request from a morning show. And Daniel? He called me 14 times that night. When I didn't answer, he left a voicemail dripping with fake sweetness. Mom, hey, look, Vanessa and I were just overwhelmed, you know. Things were said that we didn't mean. You know we love you. We should talk about how we're going to handle this money as a family. I replayed that message 3 times, each time laughing harder. Suddenly, I wasn't the pathetic mother he dismissed. I was the key to everything he wanted. The next day, Vanessa came alone. She showed up in designer heels and an outfit that probably cost more than my old car. She put on a syrupy smile and hugged me like I was her long-lost best friend. "Oh, Maggie, darling. Oh, we've been such fools. You know we only want the best for you. Why don't we go shopping together? We could get you some new clothes, maybe plan a trip. Wouldn't that be fun?" I almost choked on my tea. The audacity. The same woman who spat in my face, calling me too old and useless, was suddenly treating me like royalty. I leaned in, my voice soft but sharp as glass. "Vanessa, you told me to go die somewhere else. I haven't forgotten." Her smile faltered. She stammered something about stress and miscommunication, but I waved her off. "Leave," I said firmly. And for once, she obeyed. Here's the thing about sudden money. It brings out the truth in people. And Daniel and Vanessa's truth was ugly. Behind my back, they started bragging to their friends that they were about to inherit millions. They even tried to put a deposit down on a mansion in cash. Except the bank laughed in their faces when they realized the money wasn't theirs. Meanwhile, I began making quiet plans. I hired a lawyer. I spoke with financial advisors. I wasn't reckless. I'd lived my whole life stretching pennies, and suddenly I had dollars falling like rain. I wasn't about to let it go to waste. Daniel and Vanessa, on the other hand, spiraled. Vanessa maxed out their credit cards on shopping sprees, convinced the money would arrive any day now. Daniel quit his job, strutting around like a millionaire while still living in a cramped rental. By the end of the month, they were drowning in debt. And still, they thought I'd swoop in to save them. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. I was in my new home, a beautiful, modest house by the lake that I'd just purchased in cash, when they both showed up unannounced. Daniel fell to his knees, actually weeping. "Mom, please, you can't do this to us. We're your family. We need you." Vanessa, her makeup streaked with tears, added, "We're going to lose everything. Just give us a little, just $1 million or $2 million. That's nothing for you now." For a long moment, I just looked at them. My son, once so proud, now groveling. My daughter-in-law, once so cruel, now desperate. And you know what I felt? Peace. Because for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe them a single thing. Daniel and Vanessa came to my new lake house, begging for money. Tears, promises, fake apologies. They tried everything. But I didn't give them what they wanted. Instead, I was ready to give them something they'd never forget: the truth. I looked at my son, kneeling on the hardwood floor, his hands clutching my skirt like he was 5 years old again, asking for candy. Except this wasn't candy, this was millions. Daniel, I said softly, do you remember when you were little and you begged me for a new bike? We couldn't afford it. So I worked extra shifts at the school cafeteria just so you wouldn't feel left out. His sobs quieted. He looked up at me, hopeful. Well, I continued, back then I sacrificed everything for you. And now you tell me to die so you can live in luxury. Tell me, son, why should I sacrifice again? His face twisted with shame. But Vanessa jumped in. Because we're your family. What will people think if you abandon us? That made me laugh. The same woman who once sneered that I was too old to matter was suddenly worried about appearances. So I stood tall and told them the truth. This money is mine, every cent. And you, both of you, will never see a dime. Daniel's eyes widened. You can't mean that, Mum. You don't understand what you're saying. We're your blood. No, I said, my voice steady. I do understand. For years, you've treated me like a burden, like I was nothing. And when you thought you didn't need me anymore, you tossed me aside. Well, guess what? I don't need you anymore either. Vanessa stood up, her face red with fury. You're making a mistake. You're old and weak. You'll die soon, and then all of this will come to us anyway. Why not just give it now? The venom in her voice was almost laughable. She thought fear would move me. But instead, I leaned closer and whispered, Vanessa, I've already written my will, and guess what? Neither of you are in it. The silence that followed was delicious. A week earlier, I had gone to my lawyer, Mr. Harrington, a sharp man in his 50s with kind eyes and no patience for nonsense. I want everything airtight, I told him. Not one penny must go to Daniel or his wife. He nodded, sliding papers across his mahogany desk. You have full control, Mrs. Matthews. You can designate beneficiaries, create trusts, even donate large portions to charity. So that's exactly what I did. I set up a scholarship fund in my late husband's name for underprivileged kids. I donated to the local food bank that once helped us. I left some for my loyal friend Eleanor, and the rest locked in a trust that bypassed Daniel and Vanessa completely. When I told them this, Vanessa screamed like a banshee. Daniel slumped. The fight drained out of him. But I wasn't done. Oh no, they needed to feel the full weight of their greed. So I invited them to dinner at a fancy restaurant in town. They were suspicious, but came anyway, probably hoping I had reconsidered. We sat at a table near the center, the room buzzing with chatter. Halfway through the meal, I stood and raised my glass. Ladies and gentlemen, I said loudly, I just want to thank you all. I've lived in this town my whole life, and to celebrate my lottery win, I'm funding a community center for seniors and scholarships for local students. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. The local press was there too, writing it all down. And there sat Daniel and Vanessa, trapped at my table, forced to smile as I announced every dollar I'd be giving away. To everyone but them. After that night, things unraveled quickly for them. Their friends stopped answering their calls once they realized there was no money coming. The mansion deposit bounced, their credit cards were declined, and soon they were dodging debt collectors. Vanessa tried one last trick. She showed up crying, claiming she was pregnant. Think of your grandchild, she sobbed. But I saw through her lies. She wasn't pregnant. She was desperate. Vanessa, I said coldly, if you ever do have a child, I pray you treat them better than you've treated me. Because I promise you, karma has a way of circling back. The last time I saw them together was outside the courthouse.
They had tried to file some ridiculous claim that the ticket belonged to the family. The judge laughed them out in 10 minutes. Daniel wouldn't even meet my eyes as they left, Vanessa tugging his arm like a furious child. That was when I knew my revenge was complete. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't even lift a finger. All I did was hold on to what was rightfully mine and let their own greed destroy them. As I sat later by the lake, sipping tea in my new home, I thought about everything. I had always been the quiet, dependable mother, the one who sacrificed, who gave, who bent until I broke. But not anymore. This time, I kept what was mine. This time, I showed them that underestimating me was their biggest mistake. And as the sun set over the water, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living better without them.
2 weeks passed. The town was buzzing about my donations, my new home, and the scholarships I'd started. I finally felt peace. But then, late one night, I heard a noise. The sound of glass shattering. I grabbed the phone, ready to call the police, but froze when I heard a voice I knew too well. Daniel. "Mom," he hissed, stumbling into the living room. "You have to give me something, please. Vanessa left me. She took what little we had and ran off." His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled. He looked like a shadow of the proud, arrogant man who once kicked me out of my own house. "Daniel," I said firmly, "you broke in. Do you realize you could be arrested for this?" He waved his arms frantically. "I don't care. I just need one chance. I'll pay you back, I promise." I stared at him, heart aching despite everything. This was my son, my blood. But then I remembered his words, "Just go die somewhere else." And suddenly, my sympathy hardened into steel. When I refused again, Daniel's desperation turned ugly. "You owe me," he shouted. "If it weren't for me, you'd never even buy a lottery ticket. I deserve half of it. No, all of it." Before I could respond, he lunged for the safe hidden behind my bookshelf. I had shown it to him years ago, never imagining it would come back to haunt me. But he didn't know the code. He slammed his fists against it, screaming like a madman. And that's when I made the call. "Hello? Yes, this is Mrs. Matthews. I need the police at my residence. Now." When he realized what I had done, he froze. "You wouldn't," he whispered. But I held his gaze. "Watch me."
Months passed after the courtroom drama. Daniel kept his distance thanks to the restraining order, and Vanessa, she disappeared like smoke. I poured myself into my new life, building scholarships, supporting charities, creating opportunities for people who reminded me of my younger, struggling self. The $58 million wasn't just money anymore. It was a second chance at life, a way to make an impact. But then one evening, as I was locking up after a community event, I saw a figure standing under the street lamp. Daniel. He looked nothing like the proud, arrogant son I once knew. His hair was unkempt, his clothes worn, and his shoulders hunched like the weight of the world sat on them. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice cracked with something I'd never heard before, humility, he said, "Mom, I'm sorry." He told me everything. How Vanessa had cleaned out his accounts and run away overseas. How the so-called friends he bragged about vanished the moment his pockets emptied. How he'd been living in a shabby motel, working odd jobs just to eat. "I thought I didn't need you," he admitted, eyes wet. "I thought money made me powerful, but it just made me stupid. And now, you're all I have left." I stood there, stunned. A part of me wanted to embrace him, to tell him it was all forgiven, but another part, the part that remembered the coldness in his voice when he said, "Just go die somewhere else," hesitated.